Hi, hello, good morning, and welcome to Daily News Analysis by Spardha Lines. Today we've picked up a couple of important articles from the Hindu, the Indian Express and the Deccan Herald newspapers. We've also picked up practice questions as well so that you would be able to crack your KAS examination at the very first go. So what are you waiting for? Hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel and also share it with your fellow aspirants. But before we start with the practice questions and the articles for the day, we have two important announcements. The first is in reference to the KAS Prelims cum Mains classes. We will have these sessions conducted both on the online as well as on the offline front. What are the unique features of the Spardha Lines classroom program? These classes will be conducted by the experts and they have rich experience as to understand what are the possible questions that can be asked in your examination. So they are highly qualified faculty, and along with the classes what we also provide you is a magazine, and this magazine will be a fortnightly magazine which is important both for your prelims as well as your mains examination. The magazine can be taken in bilingual format. It can be taken up in English as well as in Kannada. We will also follow it up with the prelims and mains test series as well. So once you become part of our classroom program, you will also be provided as a free prelims and mains test series along with the classes. So you take up the classes, you will get magazine as a free component, and you will also have is the test series which is part of it. Then we will have special classes for the communication and answer writing skills. It is just not knowing about what to write. It is just not knowing about having the knowledge about this particular concept. It is about how to structure it, how to present it so that the evaluator also gives you the maximum marks for that particular question. So how do I address a question? What are the prefixes and the suffixes that they may have to look at is what we will also explain through these classes. We will also have is a one-on-one feedback and mentorship sessions. Let's say you are a working professional, you do not have enough time to study as well. It is at this particular moment that we step in. We will give you a prescribed path, the guideline and the framework as to how you can frame your entire study pattern as well, and we will provide you feedback. So in case you're deviating from the prescribed path, we will ensure that you are brought back to the track as well. This will include daily current affairs test as well as classes. So the current affairs sessions will happen on our YouTube. We are recording these lectures, and at the same time we will also provide these tests on a daily basis. We will also provide complimentary access to Spardha Lines statewide monthly current affairs test. DSERT and NCERT foundation classes will be provided by the experts, and these will be strategically designed by the Spardha Lines R&D team. So what are you waiting for? The admissions are right now open, and all that you have to do is join the online and the offline classroom program so that you would be able to crack this examination at the very first go. And we will also have is a NCERT foundation course for IAS and KAS. This will also be provided with the study material. We will have is a classes which can be both online and offline, and free current affairs magazine both in English as well as in Kannada. These are some of the unique initiatives that we have taken at Spardha Lines so that you can ultimately crack the KAS examination. Let's get started. I'll look into the first practice question and the first article for the day. With respect to Nelson Mandela Award for Health Promotion, which of the following statements are correct? So what is that you have to do? Before we go ahead with the discussion, what I want you to do is look at this question carefully. After reading the question, you see what the answer could likely be, and also put it on the comment section, and then pause the video and then take on with the video. The first statement reads, it was established in 2019 upon the initiative of the Ministers of Health of member states of the African region. It is awarded to individuals, institutions and or governmental or non-governmental organizations that have made a significant contribution to the health promotion. Dr. Mariam Atbi has been honored with the award by the World Health Organization for the year 2024. Which of the statements are correct? The question is asking for the right and the correct statement. So the answer to this would be 1 and 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to this award. So NIMHANS backs World Health Organization's Nelson Mandela Award. So when we look into the headline of this newspaper article, you will for sure realize that for the year 2024, it was not awarded to that individual, but it is for NIMHANS. So this individual called as Mariam Atbi, was honored with the award back in the year 2023. But for the year 2024, it is awarded to NIMHANS. NIMHANS happens to be one of the premier institutions which deals with mental sciences. So it is in this particular backdrop, because they have contributed a lot to India as well as to the global fraternity in terms of the health promotion. The Nelson Mandela Award for Health Promotion was given by the World Health Organization. So what are some of the important facts that you have to remember from the examination point of view? The first fact is it was established in 2019. So there might be a change in the year, there might be 1990. So remember, it was in the year 2019 that this particular award was initiated by the Ministers of Health of member states of African region. First important parameter. The second is it is awarded to individual. Again, they can give you a question saying that it is only given to the individuals, it is only given to the non-governmental organizations, but remember, it is awarded to individuals, it is awarded to institutions, it is awarded to governmental as well as the non-governmental organizations as well. Any of these can be awarded with this particular award. So the first and the second statements are right, but the third statement is wrong, because for the year 2023 is when Mariam Atbi was given this award. Who was it given in the year 2022 and 2021 is what you have to put on the comment section. So when we speak about the award, it is currently being given to NIMHANS. NIMHANS, with its comprehensive approach to mental health care, has been pioneering in integrating mental health services into broad healthcare system, developing community-centric strategies and innovating in digital health solutions. The Institute's efforts in advancing mental health research, education and patient care have set a benchmark in the field, not only within India but on a global scale. This award comes at a significant time for NIMHANS as the institute is celebrating 50 years. This can be very important from your prelims, because whenever you see how the UPSC or KPSC trend goes, you will have one of the institutions. Let's assume for a moment there is 25 years anniversary or 50 years anniversary, half a century, or for example diamond jubilee celebration, so on and so forth. In all these instances, if you have keenly looked at how UPSC and KPSC have picked questions, there is a landmark celebration that comes up, and it is during this period that they also ask a question. So for this year, there can be a possibility, because NIMHANS is celebrating 50 years, UPSC or KPSC can likely be asked. So the KAS examination may ask you this question. So remember this, that the award comes at a time for NIMHANS as the institute is celebrating 50 years this year. So there is a possibility of this question coming up, and that is why you have to feed it deep down your memory. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article says, can preamble be amended? Keeping date intact, asks the Supreme Court of India. This article here is speaking about the preamble of the Indian Constitution. What is the article all about? The article primarily focuses about one of the petitions that is filed in the Supreme Court of India, which says that the word secular and socialist was not originally present in the Constitution of India, that is the preamble of the Indian Constitution. Since it was not originally present, do we have the right to go ahead and remove these words called as secular and socialist? It is this particular article which goes on to speak about that idea. The Supreme Court is yet to clarify it, but what we will try and understand through this article is couple of important compartments when it comes to the preamble. One, can preamble be amended? First point. Second point is preamble part of the Indian Constitution? And we will also look at some of the key aspects of the preamble. When we say preamble of the Indian Constitution, the first important parameter that you have to remember from the preliminary examination is, it is the American Constitution which first had the wordings of the preamble. They say, we the people of United States of America. So which was the first constitution which had the preamble? It happens to be United States of America. This can be very important from your preliminary examination point of view. So which constitution in the world was the first constitution which had the preamble? It happens to be United States of America. Now when we speak preamble, what does the preamble indicate? Generally when we speak about preamble, a preamble is like an identity card. It is like a window through which I can see my entire constitution that is framed. So when we speak about the preamble, it was adopted by the Objectives Resolution. So we have the first Prime Minister of our country, who happens to be Jawaharlal Nehru. Jawaharlal Nehru introduced the Objectives Resolution. So on the basis of the Objectives Resolution, what we have is the preamble. This can be the second important parameter from your preliminary examination point of view. Now, if you look into the constitution of the country and preamble per se, what do we have? We have the source of the power. What is the source of the power? We the people of India having solemnly resolved to declare. So what does it say? We the people of India. So where does the constitution derive its power from? Where does the preamble derive its power from? It is we the people of the country. So who is giving the power to the constitution? Constitution per se is just a book. It has articles as well. We write articles into it. So what we have is the articles written into the constitution. Can constitution act on its own? No. What you require is people who give power to the constitution. So it is we the people of India who have ultimately given the power to the makers of the constitution. So what is the source of the power? The source of the power happens to be we the people of the country. Then what we have is that particular entity which speaks about the nature of the Indian constitution. What is the nature of the Indian constitution? We the people of India having solemnly resolved to declare India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. So if you look into the constitution and the preamble of the Indian constitution, these words are written in capital words. So there is specific emphasis on these words, and this happens to be a composite term. What do we mean by composite term? That sovereign does not have any comma after it, socialist does not have a comma after it, secular does not have a comma after it, which basically means all these 5 words have to be read together. This is a composite expression, which means that there is emphasis that is laid to each of these words: sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. So what are we speaking about? We are speaking about the amendment. In the 42nd constitutional amendment, what we inserted were 2 words. One happens to be secular, the second happens to be socialist. Now the question is, this was inserted at the time of an emergency. This was inserted at the time where the parliamentary proceedings was not happening according to the will of the constitution, and at the same time it was inserted not by a deliberation and discussion like originally envisaged. When you look at the original constitution, you have sovereign, you have democratic, you have republic. Each of these were being discussed in the parliament, but when these words of socialist and secular were added, none of it was present. There were no discussions and deliberations, which is why there is a proposal that is being thrown before the Supreme Court. Can we bring the changes? Now the question is, can the preamble be amended? Can the preamble be changed right now? To answer this question, what we have to understand is, yes, preamble can be changed. Preamble can be changed if the people decide. Preamble can be changed if the government decides. Preamble can be changed if the legislature decides. Preamble can be changed if the executive decides. So what do we mean by changing it? Does it mean that we would be able to change the entire preamble of the Indian Constitution? No. There are few fundamental aspects. What these fundamental aspects are is what is called as the basic structure. So when it comes to the Indian Constitution, what we have is the basic structure doctrine. Within the preamble of the Indian Constitution, there are few aspects, few objectives and few important features which are part of the basic structure. If at all they are part of the basic structure, such things cannot be amended by the Constitution or bringing a change in the preamble. For example, when we say democratic, so can democratic be removed from the Indian Constitution, and can we have a new form of a government? No, we cannot remove the word democratic. Why? Because that's the very foundation on the basis of which our nation is built, our entire democracy is built. So can we change the word republic? What is republic? Republic basically means that what you will have is an election process which will ultimately elect who the elected representative is, the highest offices. For example, the president. The president is elected indirectly. Do we have a system where we have the hereditary form of governance? For example, in United Kingdom, you have the kings and the queens who ultimately succeed. They become the head of the government. But do they wield the power? Yes, they do wield the power, but ultimately it is under the control of the cabinet form of the government. But when it comes to who is the head of the government, it is the queen and the king there. But in India, do we have such a procedure? No. What we have is elections that take place for the president of the country. So when it comes to the president or the governor, it can be indirect elections, or it can be the selection or a nomination of the governor as well. But in all these parameters, remember, what we have is not one single family that is represented. So can we say tomorrow that I will change this word republic and I'll make it a hereditary system? No, because this is part of the basic structure doctrine. So when it comes to the preamble, yes, we would be able to change the preamble of the Indian Constitution. We would be able to bring amendments under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. But if at all we are bringing any of these changes under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution, this should not change the basic structure of the Indian Constitution, which basically means there are some features, there are fundamental aspects which is part of the basic structure doctrine, which happens to be a judicial innovation under the Keshavananda Bharati case. So under the Keshavananda Bharati case, the Supreme Court was innovative in itself to identify that there are some fundamentals. If you take away these fundamentals, the very bedrock of the Indian Constitution will flutter, and as a result they said that you can go ahead and change. You want to bring changes in the fundamental rights, go ahead and do it. You want to bring changes in the entire Constitution, go ahead and do it. But there are some features like the secularism, there are some features like democratic in nature, there are some features, let's say for example republic, these we would not be able to change. So you can go ahead and change the entire Constitution if you wish to. However, you cannot change the fundamental aspects. So similarly, when it comes to the preamble of the Indian Constitution, can preamble of the Indian Constitution be amended? Yes, we have amended in the 42nd constitutional amendment, and that was during the emergency as well. We would be able to change it in the near future, but if there are some aspects which are part of the basic structure, we would not be able to change. That is what is the present understanding of the amendability of the preamble. So can preamble be changed? Can it be amended? Yes, you can go ahead and amend it, but there are features which are part of the basic structure like the secular or for example democratic or republic, that we would not be able to change. So can it be changed? Yes, it can be changed. That's the first aspect. The second aspect is preamble part of the Indian Constitution? There are two landmark judgments that we have to consider. One is with respect to the Berubari Union case. The second is with respect to the Keshavananda Bharati case. What happened in Berubari Union case? In the Berubari Union case, the Supreme Court held that preamble is not part of the basic structure, period. That's it, end of the conversation. So preamble is not part of the Indian Constitution, said the Supreme Court of India. But after several years, the Supreme Court re-looked into this entire issue. The Supreme Court felt, well, the arguments that were presented during this entire conversation between the Supreme Court judges and the advocates were that we have couple of articles. Let's say for example, we have Article 14. How was Article 14 added into the Indian Constitution? These articles, when wordings were written, whether it is about rule of law or it is about Dicey's principle, everything was discussed, deliberated, and ultimately this suggestion was thrown open in the Constituent Assembly, and after elaborate discussion, that is when an article was inserted into the Constitution. Similarly, if we are speaking about Article 15, was Article 15 directly inserted into the Constitution of India? No. People initially drafted this during the Constituent Assembly debates. They drafted this article in. It went on in debate, deliberations, people did discuss about it, and ultimately it was presented in the Constitution. It was added into the Constitution. So every article that is present in the Indian Constitution was discussed, deliberated. If some points had to be tweaked, they did tweak the article as well. So there was a clear-cut deliberation about all these articles that were supposed to have been inserted or it was supposed to have been taken out as well. Similarly, when there was a discussion in the Keshavananda Bharati case, whether the preamble is part of the Indian Constitution or not, there were discussions on the same point of view as well. What did the advocate say? The advocate showcased to the Supreme Court judges that when it comes to Article 14, when it comes to Article 15, when it comes to Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, there were clear-cut deliberations, and that is when it was inserted into the Constitution. Similarly, when it comes to the preamble was also discussed as well. Despite it was the proposal of Jawaharlal Nehru, where we have the objectives resolution which was added and subsequently became part of the preamble, which is the part of preamble in itself. It was discussed, it was deliberated, and ultimately these wordings and these objective resolution, which is now the preamble, was inserted into the constitution, while article 14, article 15, article 21, any other article had a clear-cut deliberation when it is part of the constitution. Similarly, we had the preamble which was discussed after the entire constitution was framed. The preamble had to be in sync with the constitution of the country, and that is why it was added at the last. So the advocates convinced the Supreme Court, saying that yes, preamble is part of the Constitution of India, primarily because like every other article, the preamble was also discussed, and after the entire constitution was added, after all the articles were added into the Indian Constitution, that is when the preamble was inserted. So the preamble is basically a gateway, it is an identity card, it is a window through which I would be able to see what my Indian Constitution is. Ask what the Indian Constitution is, I cannot in an elaborate way say everything about the Indian Constitution, but I instead throw open my preamble. I can show it to the people, a people of any other country, and say that this is the Constitution of India. How? Because the preamble is able to reflect the thoughts of the minds of the makers of the Constituent Assembly, the makers of the Constitution of India. So because the Indian Constitution at last was added or inserted with the preamble, preamble is also part of the Indian Constitution, and that is how from Berubari Union there was a major drift, major change that took place in Keshavananda Bharati case, where the advocates were able to convince the Supreme Court that yes, the preamble is part of the Indian Constitution. These are the important parameters that you have to remember from this article. However, we will have more of these discussions in the near future once the Supreme Court decides on this parameter concurrently. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article here is speaking about 3-line whip. We are not going to discuss about the resolution, what the resolution is all about, but we will be discussing about one of the wordings that is given under this article, which is called as a 3-line whip. Let us try and understand what is this concept of 3-line whip that this article mentions of. When we speak about whip, who is a whip? A whip is a person who is appointed by a political party. Let's say for example, we have one of the political parties in the form of Congress, or it is a political party in the form of BJP, or it can be any other political party as well. So what do the political party do? They appoint one of the senior members of the political party as the party whip. What does the party whip do? The party whip will basically issue directions to the members of the political party. For example, if you consider BJP or for example Congress, the political party will appoint, let's say, one person as the party whip. This person will be a senior member, and they basically start issuing directions to the members of the political party. The dear member, we have one of the bills that is being discussed in the parliament today, please come over. So they issue a whip, a direction, or there is a legislation making that is in place. We have to voice out our opinion against this particular legislation. So all of you will have to come to the parliament today. So who is a whip? A whip happens to be a senior member who is appointed by that political party, and it is this person who will issue directions to the members of that political party. So parties appoint a senior member from among their house contingents to issue whips. This member is called as a chief whip, and he or she is assisted by additional whips. So a whip will then issue directions, and these directions will have to be followed by that person in that political party. Whips can be of varying degrees of seriousness. The importance of a whip can be inferred from the number of times an order is underlined. In this particular backdrop, there are 3 types of whips that can be issued. One is a 1-line whip, the second happens to be a 2-line whip, the third happens to be a 3-line whip. What is a 1-line whip? A 1-line whip underline only once. So let's say for example, they issue a statement. For example, the BJP issued a 3-line whip to all its members in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha to be present on Saturday, the last day of the last session of the 17th Lok Sabha, and is likely to bring in a resolution on Ram Temple in Ayodhya. So what will happen? They will issue a 3-line whip. So there will be 3 underlines that will be present, which means that it is of importance. So a 1-line whip will basically mean that a statement would be marked by one single line. So a 1-line whip underlined once is usually informed to party members of a vote and allows them to abstain in case they decide not to follow the party line. What does this mean? This means that let's assume I am the party whip of BJP or I am the party whip of Congress. So what do? I say that, dear members, we have one of the legislations. It is this particular legislation is very important, so you may come or you may not be able. If in case you have an emergency, it is not compulsory that you attend. So if I wish to come, I can come as well, but even if I am not coming, I can abstain myself from voting as well. So in one line whip, a permission is given to an individual where he can abstain from voting. So which basically means my presence is there in the parliament, but I may not vote in that particular process. So in the one line whip, it is not compulsory for voting. That person from the political party may also abstain from voting. He may not vote as well. The second happens to be a two line whip, directs them to be present during the voting. So even during the voting, they are requesting that you have to be present. But the third line, three line whip, is the most important one. It is the strongest employed on important occasions such as the second reading of a bill or a no confidence motion, and places an obligation on the members to toe the party line. This is where, in case there is an individual who has been issued with the three line whip, it means it is compulsory for that individual of the political party to come in the parliament, to come before the parliament and ensure whatever directions have been issued by the party whip, the same is followed and the same is also implemented. So I, as a party whip, I also request another member of the parliament that you have to vote in favor of this legislation. So I have to listen to the party whip and vote in favor of that particular legislation. What if I say that, being the party whip, that you're not supposed to vote in favor of this legislation? Yes, I'm again supposed to follow it, that the person whosoever has been directed, he is not supposed to vote in favor of the legislation as well. So whatever directions have been issued by the party whip, the same will have to be followed, implemented, and the directions will have to be absorbed by this person and should also be followed as well. What if the person does not follow the three line whip? In that particular case, in all likelihood, if at all they realize that the person has not listened or not heard the wordings of the party whip, this person can also be imposed with penalty as well. What is the penalty? The penalty would be, the speaker would be told that this person is going against the party lines. The speaker would be told that he is not following the mandate of the party whip, and as a result, he can also be suspended from that political party as well. So a three line whip is the strongest employed on important occasions. It is for the second reading of a bill or a no confidence motion, and it is compulsory for the member of the political party to follow it. If at all he does not follow, and if the whip comes to know that contrary has been done, the same can be taken up in the party meetings. Disciplinary actions can be initiated against this individual. If disciplinary action is initiated, he may be given a warning and let go. But if it is of serious in nature, it can also be reported to the speaker, and the speaker also has the power to disqualify such an individual because they are not following the party lines. And this can only be escaped if at all there is a split of a political party or there is a merger of a political party with another political party. These are some of the important parameters that you have to remember from the examination point of view. Now let's look into the next article for the day. Before we do that, what happens when it comes to the party whip? If we have to take the example, let's say in the United Kingdom, an MP can lose membership of the party for defying the whip, but can keep his or her house seat as an independent. In the US, as per a note published by PRS Legislative Research, the party's whip role is to gauge how many legislators are in support of a bill and how many are opposed to it, and to the extent possible, persuade them to vote according to the party line on the issue. This is how it works in United States of America. And in India, as we just discussed, rebelling against three-line whip can put a lawmaker's membership at risk. The anti-defection law allows the speaker or the chairperson to disqualify such a member. The only exception is where 1/3 of the legislator vote against the directive, effectively splitting the party. We did discuss about the same. This is how, if at all a political party's whip is being issued, if they do not follow, there are likely chances of him or her getting disqualified as well. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article says, Parliament clears bill to curb malpractices in public exams. The Rajya Sabha has passed the Public Examination Prevention of Unfair Means Bill. It was earlier cleared by the Lok Sabha as well. So the bill is aimed at bringing greater transparency, fairness, credibility of the public examination systems. What is this article all about? The article here is speaking about examinations that are conducted both for the sake of employment as well as for the sake of the examinations. For example, let's say there is a student who is taking up the examination for the IIT JEE, or let's say for example there is a student who is taking up the UPSC examination or SSC examination, or it can be any other entrance examination as well for the education. In all these cases, a lot of efforts are being put up by the students. The students as well as those preparing for an employment put up years of dedication just to crack the examination so that they can have a secure life. But what happens in number of situations? There have been ample number of cases where there have been scams that have been unfolding because of such examinations. These examinations, whenever they are being conducted, there are also possibilities of pre-booking that takes place. Give us the question paper, we will pay you 1 crore. Give us the question paper, we will give you 50 lakhs. So what is the use or the entire purpose of conducting the examination when the entire examination is happening in a very malified way? In order to prevent such issues, in order to ensure that there is transparency in the conduction of the process, in order to ensure that whosoever is conducting the examination happens to do it with utmost alacrity and also with meticulous planning, and also ensure that the ones who study, the ones who put the efforts, the ones who are actually deserving of are given the best opportunity, this particular bill has been initiated. If at all there are any undue chances that are taken, if at all there are any malpractices that these examiners are engaged in, then they will be thrown behind bars. They will also be thrown behind bars with almost a lot of penalty as well. So if you look into the text of the bill, it says to prevent unfair means in the public examinations, to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, which basically means the intent is to prevent unfair trade practices in the public examination. The text adds that the objective of the bill is to bring greater transparency, fairness and credibility to the public examination system, and to assure the youth that their sincere and genuine efforts will be fairly rewarded. The statement of objects and reasons of the bill notes that malpractices in public examination also lead to delays as well, and at the same time cancellation of the examination. If at all you've been giving the competitive examination, you also know for the fact that you might have put your best efforts, you will clear this time, but there is no likely possibility that you may clear the next time, because the amount of efforts that you have put this time may not be equivalent in the next examination. There might be new circumstances, emergency, exigencies that may arise as well. So what happens, you might have put in a lot of efforts this time, but then there is cancellation of the exam. We had the PSI scam that had unfolded in the state of Karnataka. So the PSI scam is for the sub-inspector post, and in this particular backdrop there were a lot of people who were involved, and then this had become what is called as the PSI scam. So unfortunately this exam has been cancelled, and they have also said they'll conduct a new examination as well. So it is in this particular backdrop, some people may clear, some people may not clear, so we do not know. So there will be undue delay for the conduction of the examination, and at the same time there can be cancellation of the examination as well. So it is the people who are giving the examination who become the major sufferers. So in order to prevent such scams, such malpractices, this legislation has been initiated. So the bill covers several unfair practices in public exam, such as leaking the question paper. So they pay a certain amount of money to whosoever is setting up this paper, and this is considered as part of this bill. So leaking the question paper is to be stopped. Tampering with the answer sheets, let's say for example you have the OMR sheet. In the OMR sheet you would have marked a particular bubble with an A, B, C or D, and when you give out your OMR sheet, there can be people where you would have booked it with those people, and those people will also mark your answers as well. So tampering with the answer sheets, manipulating seating arrangements as well, creating fake websites to cheat for monetary gain, and conducting fake exams are all part of this legislation. And if at all, the proposed legislation makes all offences cognizable, which means to say that you don't require the permission of the magistrate. The police officers would be able to arrest whosoever the person involved in it immediately. It is non-bailable, non-compoundable as well. Those using unfair means in the public exams may also be imprisoned for 3 to 5 years and fined up to 10 lakh. Exam providers may also be fined up to 1 crore as well. So penal provisions and fines have been imposed, and the bill increases penalty for specific offences including imprisonment for up to 10 years for certain individuals in responsible positions found to have consented to exam rigging. Such persons include those in charge of the service provider firm, directors, senior management, or anyone affiliated with the firm or institution overseeing an examination. In cases involving organized crime where individuals or groups involved in the examination authority, service provider, or any institution are involved, the bill mandates a minimum 5-year imprisonment and extendable up to 10 years and also a fine of no less than 1 crore, and they will be imposed with punishment under the Indian Penal Code as of now, and when the BNS comes into implementation, they will also be imposed with penalty under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. These are some of the features of this particular legislation. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article says the decline of America's leadership. So this article in just basically says that you had United States of America, which was once a superpower. Now it continues to say it is a superpower, but then unfortunately it does not still hold the same amount of influence in the 21st century. So this article goes on to say the United States of America was one of the vanguard. It was also the country which proposed the idea of globalization. It proposes the concept of globalization, but at the same time it is now withdrawing from the proposal of the globalization. It is looking inwards as well, and at the same time you have America, which comes up with a rules-based order. It puts out a clear-cut guidelines as to what the world has to follow, but then United States of America itself does not follow these rules-based order. For example, if at all there is aggression by an external country, they have to at least make sure that there is proper consensus that is built, and United Nations Security Council is also able to impose a certain plan as well. But what happens with United States of America? It does not take the permission of the United Nations Security Council. It feels that there are some arms which are present in Iraq or in any other country, and it becomes the protector of the world, and then even takes up this cause at the cost of the permissions. So it lays out a rules-based order, but it does not believe in following this rules-based order. So it says globalization, but it is withdrawing from globalization. It says that it wants to follow a rules-based order by checking with the United Nations Security Council, but it does not execute that particular program. So as of now, the United States of America has a diminishing power, says this article. That apart, we have China and Russia as well. Both these powers are in an antagonistic relationship with United States of America. United States of America as of now does not wield power. It is not able to influence the outcome of many countries, but China and Russia have been able to do so. So there is we are at that particular junction of history where United States of America, the sole superpower, is now being questioned by China as well as Russia. Is what is this article all about. So you have to just run through this article. There isn't much that will contribute to your mains answer writing. However, these two parameters are very important. One, United States of America takes up initiatives and it withdraws from initiatives as well, and at the same time United States of America is not the sole power, but it also has China and Russia who have antagonistic relationship with United States of America, and they are also bridging the differences of power order. Global power order is what is this article all about. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. If you're liking these initiatives, please hit on the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also share it with your fellow aspirants as well. Thank you for watching. All the best.